Hello everyone, welcome to FM Tahiti. So it's another one of the kind of island specials I'm going to be going through. In this we're going to be covering the Marquesas Islands. So again, I've centered in on Tahiti, which is part of another series. You can see where everything is kind of relative to this. And then we're going to move over to what we consider to be the main island in Marquesa, which is Hiva Oa. So Hiva Oa all the way over here. Big pretty looking island. It's on the little airport. Way in the mountains there. And if we just scroll all the way out, just to give a sense of scale. Okay, that's maybe a bit too far out. But Tahiti is here. Hiva Oa is here. Marquesas Islands are kind of here. Gambier Islands are kind of down there. Austral Islands are over here. Sorry, so one of the Gambier Islands is actually down there, so that's quite spread. So you can kind of get a feeling for Gambier's down there. Bass around here. Oh, down here's the lowest bit. Austral up here. You've got the Windward Islands going up around here, the end of the Marquesas Islands, and then the Marquesas Islands are mainly all kind of clustered around here. So they're all quite close together in comparison to some of the other islands, but they're still far away from pretty much everything else. So this is Hiva Oa. So this is where the Hiva Oa Dominica play, or the gods, as they're known. Most of the island chain in Marquesa was originally inhabited, but in about 1500s, late 1500s, an explorer called Alvaro de Medina, or Medana, charted them. So most of these islands were probably originally charted by him in terms of the west, but there were people living in most of these islands already. So the Hiva Oa Dominicas play in the Alvaro de Medina Porch, which is their kind of national stadium based on this island. And they're called the gods because the legend around these islands is that one of the gods in Polynesia decided he was going to build a house, essentially, and all of these islands are different parts of that house, and they have names relating to different parts of a house. So this one's known as the ridgepole, the way the houses were built. So Hiva Oa translates as the ridgepole in some dialects. So that's why it's got that kind of godly influence. That's where they play in Hiva Oa. There's about 2,000 people here. I think in all of the Marquesas Islands, the population's just below about 10,000. So there's less people in this entire island chain than there are in Papeete, for example, in the Tahiti mainland. So it is a little bit different. We're going to move over now to Tahuata, which is just down here. Short hop, skip and a jump, and this is where the Madre de Dios side play. A few people do live here, as you can see. Look, over there, over there. Sparsely populated, and because of all these kind of ridges and peaks, there's not actually much flat land for them to have any kind of airport on there, and it's very difficult to travel across. It feels quite isolated, apparently. So when you're over here, it's actually quite a bit of a trek, even though the island's relatively small, to see everyone on the other side, like down here, because of this massive mother of God chain in the middle. So that's where the Madre de Dios play, again inspired by one of the kind of Spanish explorer names. So this is why for some of the islands, the teams will have players that come through with Spanish as their second nationality in the game database. For the Tahiti mainland and those islands, they'll come through with French as their second nationality. Marquesas, they'll come through as Spanish, which means for our game, if you get a really good regen coming through one of these teams here or in Tahiti, you might have to battle France or Spain to try and get them to play nationally for you. But that's Tahuata. We'll move over to Ua something or other. Ua Huka. There we go. Over here. And again, if I pull back, that's where Tahuata is. That's where Hiva Oa is. And then over here we've got Ua Huka. Ua Huka's got about 570-ish people living on it. It's got its own little airport. More importantly, though, it's got about 3,000 feral goats and horses that are just kind of ravaging it. So you can kind of see there's not as much greenery on this island as there are in some places because of this kind of ecological disaster in the making. So it's why the Oaxaca chevrez, I think chevrez, I can't remember if it's French for goats or horses. I think cheval is horse, if I remember my GCSE French. Chevrez will be the goats. That's why they're inspired. They're named after this. But this idea of having a lot of feral animals ruining things on your island is pretty common across a lot of the islands, especially in Marquesas. So a bit of ecological education there for you. Don't introduce non-indigenous species to islands and expect the island to stay the same. There are a lot of issues with doing that. But that's where the chevrez play. And I'll come back and I'll mention this island again in a bit because there's another island elsewhere that's got beef with them. Kind of. I may have really overstated that, to be honest. We'll go to Uapo, sometimes known as Uapo or Uapoa, depending on how badly I misspelt it, but also there are some differences. And again, if you just look at the map, there's Hivaoa. That's where Oaxaca is. So you can see it's not too far away from everything. So Uapoa. Uapo's got a population around about just over 2,000. It's got lots of kind of basalt cliffs because of the way it was formed volcanically, kind of around it on the edges. So it's a bit cliffy. It's got various population centres in there, so it's got quite a few people. Let's have a look at one of these ones. So yeah, it's quite busy. It's got a pension, as I mentioned, so you can go and stay somewhere fancy, like one of the resorts on Bora Bora that costs thousands and thousands, or you can stay at a pension, which is a bit like a B&B. Get to know the actual local people. So Uapoa, their team's known as the Catholics. That's because Catholic missionaries came over here and settled. And one of the reasons why the population is a bit higher on this island than some of the others is because apparently when visitors came to the island, the Catholic priests used to get the villagers quarantined, essentially. They'd get them into the church and quarantine them from these visitors so the new visitors didn't spread any diseases to them, because a lot of the islands across all of French Polynesia were visited by various explorers, and the indigenous people were almost always worse off for that, whether it was the fact that they were attacked like the HMS Bounty mutineers near the Austral and Bass Islands, whether it was from disease or exploitation. There was normally a fairly negative kind of impact. So quite a lot of disease, smallpox, things like that were passed around. But over here, the priests tried to keep them safe initially. So that's why they're called Catholics, and they've got that cross badge. If we move over then to the next island, which isn't far, is Nuka Hiva. Here's Nuka Hiva. Short skip and a jump. Over there you've got Oaxaca and Nuka Hiva. Nuka Hiva, I quite like the look of Nuka Hiva. Robert Louis Stevenson visited the island. He landed on the north side of the island, apparently. It's got its own little airport. About 2,500 people kind of live on the island, apparently. Let's see, where's everyone living? Not there, that's just a lookout point. Over here, got Notre Dame Cathedral. Nice looking bay. Snack place, I'm assuming. Pizza, good. If we end up managing here, it'll be good to know that we can go and get pizza. A lot of things they grow on the island, they'll sort of consume here on the island. One of the things they grow is breadfruit. You can get breadfruit in markets over here in the UK. If you've never tried breadfruit, it's amazing. If you cook it right, it's kind of starchy like potato, but kind of naturally tasty and buttery. Just go eat some breadfruit if you can. So they have breadfruit on the island, but what I probably like most about this island is, if you remember I said before, you've got the Hivaoa gods, and the legend is the gods created these various islands to build a house, and each island's got a different name that means something else. So Nuka Hiva is meant to be the roof of the house, and you can kind of see it with the kind of its spread, its pattern. It looks like a kind of hut roof in a way. And the legend is Nuka Hiva is the roof, and they dumped all the rubbish out on the other side, which is Oaxaca. So where the chevrez play, that is the dump, according to the legend about Nuka Hiva. So in my mind, these two must hate each other. That's a proper rivalry. that will be going on over there. If I manage one of these teams, I will be slating the other. And to be honest, the more I think about it, the more it makes me want to manage Nuka Hiva at some point. Oh, other facts. That's it. They've experimented with having cattle on the island about 15 years ago, and these cattle are hunted with rifles because the cattle are feral. Bear that in mind, more feral animals. There are more to come. Next island is going to be Eo, or Eo. And again, Nuka Hiva. And there's our island. This is where the Moutons play. No one actually lives here anymore. It used to be, a long time ago, a leper colony. So they send the lepers off here to just be all leprosy filled. And no one lives there anymore apart from lots of sheep, feral sheep, denuding the island. So we're going to get rid of the sheep and put a stadium on there. Let's get rid of that. Also found stone tools here indicating it was inhabited a long time ago, long before the kind of leper colony was on there, but mainly just sheep now. We're going to move over to Fatahuku now, which is, apart from being quite pretty with that coral reef there, just sort of slightly northeast of Hiva Oa. So we've gone back towards there. This is where the corallers play, and it's basically a volcanic island, so the volcanic activities pushed the kind of rock and the coral reef that was on that rock up into the air, so now we've got some greenery on there. It's not inhabited. It's mainly just fishermen who used to come here. They'd find bits of coral on the top, and there used to be a legend that it was inhabited, and it was a really kind of lovely green, vast kind of island. But the legend is the sea got jealous about how beautiful the island was and turned it around upside down, which is why there's coral on the top of it, when really it's just because of volcanic activity. So I'm sorry to spoil that legend for you. This is where the corallers are. I'm going to make use of this island now. Ooh. See if I can find it. There we go. I knew no, I've missed an It doesn't matter. Here it is. So here is Mohatani, where the San Pedros play. Near Tahuata, where Madre de Dios is, and Hiva Oa, where the gods are. So not too far away from the action here. Mohatani, I don't know if you can tell now by the kind of sort of shade of the island. In fact, there's a lot less green on there. This island has lots of feral sheep. Lots of feral sheep that have caused an ecological crisis by basically eating out the rest of the kind of greenery on there. So this is an ecological disaster was declared at one point. So Mohatani is now part of a nature reserve, along with another island, which we'll move on to next, which is Tahiti, which is this little one here. Didn't really need to do that, I could have just scrolled it. So Tahiti is here. It's mainly kind of a big kind of basalt cliff, very rocky, but this is part of the nature reserve along with Mohatani to try and get it back to how it was before sheep ruined it. So again, feral sheep causing a bit of an issue there. And then the last island we're going to look at is Fatahuku over here. So Fatahuku is where Isla Magdalena play, so it's called the Magdalena Islands by Alvaro de Medina. Look, see, there's a Catholic church, pops out straight away. There's a bay there. Does it have the name of the bay? One of the bays on here is this the bay? Is it over here? There it is. Bay of Virgins. So this is the bay for all of you guys. Bay of Virgins. Lol. But this is where Isla Magdalena play, and the boat that came by here was the Magdalena, so their badge is the Magdalena. But tiny population, not a huge amount, a few townships, but that's about it. So there we have it. We've gone through the Marquesas Islands. Not as big a population as Tahiti by any stretch of the imagination, but competitive in comparison to the Austral, Bass and Gambier and Tuamotan Islands. So thanks for watching this, and I hope it's made you really believe in the rivalry between Nukuhiva and Uahuka with the chevres, because in my mind that's a big deal now. Thanks very much.